Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. It may break your heart, but thinning fruit gives you a bigger and better harvest. Today we're going to show you how. Also, beans are a staple of the home garden. We're going to go over the basics on beans. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Goodwin's Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Mr. D, and Walter Battle will be joining us later. All right, Mr. D. When the people see this, they're going to be like, "Oh no, he didn't do that, did he?"
You know,
Come on.
thinning fruit is probably it's probably done the least about any task other than maybe spraying.
Okay.
Before I get very far into thinning, I want to tell you when it's too late to thin.
Okay.
With peaches or plums or nectarines, if the pit has hardened in the center of that fruit, then it's too late to thin. The size of that fruit is predetermined. You can thin all of them off but one and it's still going to be a small, scrawny peach.
Wow.
So I'm going to show you how to check that. Be careful, don't cut yourself.
Okay.
But you just take a knife or an X-Acto knife or just any kind of sharp knife, and I go right to the center of that fruit.
Oh wow.
And I'm just going to cut through here.
Look at that.
So this is the pit. It's watery, it's clear. I know it's healthy. I know the freeze didn't damage that. And I also know it's not too late to thin. And this is one of the larger peaches on this tree, so I know I'm good. This is an ideal time to thin this peach tree.
Well, that's good to know.
Good to know.
Didn't know that before.
Thinning is very, very simple. Have you ever heard of good old common horse sense?
I have. I've heard my grandmother say that a couple of times.
That's probably the main ingredient in properly thinning fruit. I've always said, and Dr. Arlie Powell down at Auburn burned it into my brain, that if a fruit tree sets probably 90% more fruit than it needs to. So properly pruning is going to take some of that off, and then thinning is going to take the rest of them off. This tree has already been partially thinned by Mother Nature. We have some dead fruit. Look at that right there?
Okay.
The little bitty ones, they're not new ones, they're dead ones that just haven't fallen off.
That's right.
So Mother Nature took those off. So I'm not going to leave one of those thinking it's going to be a good fruit. Now let's go to this limb right here. This is a really, really good example. In this 6-inch span, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 peaches. Now, this is where the horse sense, the good common horse sense. Picture in your mind how big you want a peach to be when you bite into it.
I'm with you.
2 or 3 inches? How many would fit within that 6-inch space? Just a couple.
Just a couple, right.
So I'm going to
oh boy,
take this one off. I'm going to take this one off.
Oh, they're cringing.
Take this one off. Now, 4 to 6 inches. This gives this one room to grow a couple of inches on each side. I'm taking those off. Okay, this limb now has 3 fruit on there.
With enough space.
And you can imagine how big those fruit are going to be. And if you'd left them like they were, that would just been like a grape cluster. Larger than grapes, but not much larger than grapes. And that's about what you want. You want between 4 and 6 inches between healthy fruit to properly thin them.
4 to 6.
4 to 6 inches. You want to get another one up here?
Let's get another one. You see a good one?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Let me pull this one around here a little bit. Okay, I've got 2 right here side by side. I'm going to kind of favor the one that's got more sunlight. So okay, now there's one here we don't need. So we got probably 4 inches here. I'm going to leave that. Okay, we've got another one up here. So actually I'm going to take this one off, leaving the one on the upper side. So I have one here, one there, one here, and a cluster right here.
Two right there together. Yeah.
I'm going to I'm basically going to leave one. And I think I'm going to leave the one on the upper side. And there's one I didn't see. I'm taking that off. Wow. So here we have one here, and one here.
That's enough room.
I've got a dead one. The dead ones you don't have to worry about taking off because they're going to fall off anyway.
Okay.
Eventually.
Let's look at this one underneath it.
Okay. All right. This is one little stem. It's got 4 peaches on it. If you had 4 big peaches on there, do you think that stem would hang on there?
It would not.
Thunderstorm, I mean, imagine 4 peaches that big. So I'm going to leave, that stem is big enough to hold 1 peach.
Okay.
So I'm going to leave 1 peach on there. And I'm going to leave it kind of back close to the base because it's stronger there.
That makes sense.
So that you can have a big peach there instead of 4 little bitty scrawny ones. I'm going to do the same thing. I'll take the small one off here. Just go to all of them and do kind of the same thing. And you move pretty fast. You don't have to have any special tools. You don't even have to have your gloves on. You know, see we got 2 on there. This is pretty good right here. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
That's one we just thinned though. That's why it's pretty good.
Makes sense, right?
And that's got, now right here we've got kind of a cluster. So I'm going to take these 2 off. Leave 1 on that little bitty stem.
And that's 3 right there. This one just came off.
Yeah, it was a dead one.
Yeah,
dead one anyway. So I'm going to leave 1 on that little stem. These dead ones they're falling anyway.
Yeah,
so Mother Nature scared us to death. We thought she'd gotten all of them. I think we got, what, 18 degrees while we had small fruit. It's not supposed to survive. But it didn't stay that cold that long. And that's our only saving grace here.
I think it's what, one day, one night?
Just one night.
Just one night.
Think you got it?
I think we got it.
You want a thin one for me?
Yeah, we can do that.
Just see if you were paying attention.
I was paying attention.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll get this one. We'll take this one off here.
Okay.
Take that one off there. See, that one's right at the top. So we'll get good sunlight.
Okay.
Take that one off there.
There you are.
There you have it.
Good.
All right.
I'm impressed. You did pay attention.
Oh, I listen to you, Mr. D. You know that. So look, we appreciate the demonstration, Mr. D, as always.
Most welcome.
All right. There are a number of gardening events going on in the next couple of weeks. Here are just a few that might interest you. All right, Walter, let's talk a little bit about beans, because it's getting close to that time to start putting them out.
Oh, yes, yes.
So we have a few questions for you about those beans.
Okay.
All right. What are the 2 main types of green beans?
Well, you know, the main types of beans, green beans that we talk about is, of course, snap beans, and I have a few of them here. And they're just called snap beans because of, you know, you just snap them, and they're just easy to, you know, to cook and to eat. And also, these beans are also known as bush beans because they tend to grow in kind of a bush type way, so to speak. And you also have pole beans, which like to run. They like to put out the runners. And one way that I grow them at my house, I use it on the back of my deck. I have this lattice, and I saved a piece of it, and I plant my pole beans, and they run, and they're a beautiful vine. I mean, they really are. They're a very pretty vine. And my wife doesn't get upset about it, so you know that works out perfect. And then of course there's lima beans, which is a little flat green bean that takes all day to pick a bushel of. And they're a bush type, and you also have a pole type lima bean as well.
Okay, So is it correct that beans are good for conditioning the soil? Because we hear that all the time.
Oh, yes, and of course I know Dr. Mike here will tell you as well, because they're legumes.
Yeah.
And they fix the atmospheric nitrogen into the soil, and therefore you have, when you pull up one of those roots that have those little nodules on it which contain nitrogen. And also a little tip here, this year when you plant your garden where you plan on putting your sweet corn or your tomatoes, put that where you had the beans and peas last year. And you'll be able to kind of cut your fertilizer costs a little bit, I believe.
All right, sounds good. A little rotation there.
Yeah, a little rotation.
All right, little rotation. All right, so hey, here's the $1 million question though. Okay. When should people plant green beans?
Well, I always like to plant anytime from April through June. Okay. And you should be fine on planting green beans. Okay. As a matter of fact, I always say anytime after tax day.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so April 15th on.
Okay, and it'll be a good time to do that. Then what are the planting recommendations?
Well, you'll want to plant them, you want the rows to probably be about 38 inches apart. You'll want to plant them, the plants individually, anywhere from about 4 to 6 inches apart. And you should be pretty good there. Okay.
Wide rows? For the most part?
Yes, wide rows. Because you might need you take a mule to plow down through there, so you need about 38 inches.
Okay. Get that mule down there.
Yeah, get the mule down through there. Yes.
All right. So once you get them in the ground, then when should you expect to harvest them?
I would say for green beans, about 60 days. Really. Okay. They have about a 60-day growing period. Lima beans is a little bit longer. I think it may take them about maybe 70 days until you can get a crop.
Okay. And most of the information will be on the seed packets.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. How many pounds of beans can a gardener produce? How about that one?
Well, you'll be shocked. You can easily, in a 100-foot row, and that is a gardener who's gone through the master gardener class and know what to do. They can easily get about, I would say easily 75 pounds of green beans off that row. That's a lot. 100-foot row.
Better have
a freezer. I think it like that.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yes, it better have a freezer.
Yeah, that's under perfect growing conditions, okay? So, yes, easily. Now, I would probably say as far as lima beans, because people look at those more from the shelled, you can get about 20 pounds of shelled lima beans from a 100-foot row. You can expect that.
How about that? It's going to be a lot. So when are the green beans ripe? You know, of course, we get that question too at the office. Well, how do you know when they're ripe and when they're ready to get
really, when you go out and of course, you kind of see a desired length. Of course, look at these green beans here. You know, that's a bush bean about that length there. But when they're kind of easily, it kind of easily pulled from the, from the vine. Okay. That's when they're ready. Now for lima beans, you'll want to fill them because you want to fill the little beans in that pod. And so it's kind of a little touch you have to develop to pick those. Takes all day to pick a bushel of lima beans, trust me.
Oh, you know that for experience?
Yes, yes.
All right, what about a gardener that does not like to chop? How can they grow beans?
Well, I would probably say, obviously, they would want to go out and use some type of pre-emergent herbicide, once they get up a little bit. And hey, by the way, if you're an organic grower, you can use the corn gluten meal for that. And then the way that I do it, I usually plant and I usually mulch with straw real heavily. And that usually takes care of my problems in growing my green beans. I usually don't have much problem at all. Okay. Because I get the plant up pretty quick and the straw mulches over and I have pretty good luck with that.
Okay. Now look, we always like for folks to get their soil tested, okay, before they plant. So what's a good pH though for growing beans?
Green beans kind of like it a little acidic. So about 5.8, 6.2, somewhere along that line, you'll be fine.
Okay. Now here's another one. Of course, we have pests and diseases. So what about those diseases? How are we going to control those out in the garden?
Well, for most of your diseases, particularly your funguses, you can use a product that contains chlorothalonil. You'll be fine in most cases. And you can also use for like bacterial diseases, you can use copper products that will handle most of your problems there with diseases.
Okay, yeah, those copper-based products, good products. Okay. But you know what else? Resistant varieties.
Well,
That's
yes,
what I always tell folks.
That's always an option there.
Look for those resistant varieties. All right, what about those insect pests that are out there?
Well, you know, for aphids and spider mites, you can use malathion. You can, for aphids and beetles and whiteflies, you can use products that contain bifenthrin in it. And of course, old copperbill, which is still around, you can use that for beetles and corn earworms and stink bugs. And if you have thrips, use spinosad products. And that's, I would say that kind of sums them up as far as insecticides for them.
Want to make sure folks read the label on that too.
Always
Especially right before you harvest.
Yes, yes, yes. Observe those pre-harvest intervals and all that.
Okay. All right, now, here's another good question.
Yeah.
Varieties for this area. I mean, you're giving the folks all this good information, but what varieties are best for our area?
Well, I'll tell you, for bush beans, I like the Blue Lakes. I like Kentucky Wonders. They're very good. You also have some golden varieties that's kind of like those wax green beans that you see. So they have like tender crop. There's a variety for that. For pole beans, you have the Kentucky Wonder.
Yeah, I've heard that.
You also have a Blue Lake pole bean. There's also a tender green. So that's all different types of varieties. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Yes.
And some of those I've heard before, and I think Mr. D has too. I see him nodding his head over there.
Kentucky Wonder's been around a long
time. Yes. And that's what I plant. Is
The Kentucky Wonder. Yeah, pretty good success with those.
Yes, I have good
On your
success
lattice?
with them. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And like I say, beautiful plants, so the wife
Yes,
stays
they
happy.
are.
So.
Beautiful blooms on them too
Yes,
as well.
that's right. That's right.
All right, Walter, we appreciate that good information about beans, man.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you much.
Now is not the ideal time of the year to prune peaches. Late winter is the time to prune peaches, but anytime you see dead wood is a good time to remove that dead wood. Probably the main reason that we're removing dead wood is because there may be disease organisms present that you don't want to spread to that tree. So I've got a limb here that's dead, that's several of them, and I'm going to go up to the healthy tissue. See, there's no leaves on there at all. I'm going to drop them down there, and I'm going to pick them up and get them out of here after I prune them off. Because if you leave them under the tree, they could still, fungal spores and things like that can still come from them. And remember, there may be disease organisms present here, so that's why we want to get rid of them. Burn them if you can, but get them out of the orchard.
All right, fellas, this is our Q&A session. Y'all ready?
Yes.
Okay, these are some good questions we have here. This is our first viewer email. Should I be wearing rubber gloves when applying glyphosate? What about other garden chemicals? And this question is via YouTube. So, Mr. D, you're first up on this one.
Yeah, without a doubt. Rubber gloves, latex gloves. Here's a good example of some reusable rubber gloves. I use the throwaway latex gloves so I don't have to worry about leaving any residue on there. But even though glyphosate and most of the products that are labeled for home use are safe, should you follow label directions, if you read that label, I promise you it's going to tell you to wear long sleeve shirts, you know, rubber gloves, a hat, and protective eyewear, because when you're spraying, if you get some wind in the wrong direction, it can blow back on you. So as much protective gear as you can have on, the better off you're going to be. Nowhere on a label will it tell you to be out there with flip-flops and shorts and t-shirts. You know, so if somebody's out there doing that, spraying, they better be watering their just water. You know.
Right, yeah, just water, right.
These are the type of shoes that I wear, you know, pretty good covering, no tennis shoes. And you can just always, you know, just check the label and it'll tell you exactly like you said. You know, every bottle has a label that you can peel off like that.
It is on the label.
Yes.
And the label is the law.
That's right.
A lot of money went into developing that label.
That's right.
And there's a reason for that.
Exactly
Yes.
right. All right, here's our second viewer email. My camellia is about 5 feet tall and the lower branches are thick, dense, and long. Should I prune my camellia back or just leave it alone? And this is from Edwin from Lake Comarinth, Mississippi. So we appreciate that, Mr. Edwin. So what do y'all think? Should I prune my camellia back or just leave it alone? What do you think, Walter?
Well, you basically just kind of prune them for your desired shape that you may want it. I don't think it's any hard, fast rules of that they have to be pruned per se.
Yeah, probably the only hard, fast rule is don't prune a camellia before it blooms.
That's right.
Because it's an early bloomer, and you follow the May rule. It blooms before the 1st of May, so you prune it after it gets through blooming. But just the shape, if it's too tall, if it's getting in your way, if it's covering a window, you can prune it back, but there's no set recommendations for pruning a camellia like we do peach trees and apple trees and pear trees and things like that.
And I would like to add too, Mr. Edwin, you have some good growth there because those lower branches are thick, dense, and long, which actually means you're getting sunlight down there. Because usually the top part of the tree we usually shade out the bottom part.
Right.
Right. So that's pretty good. It's pretty good growth. All right. So if you want to, you can, but you don't necessarily have to.
So the answer to that question is yes.
Yes. Yes.
Prune it or leave it alone. Yeah.
Leave it alone. All right. Here's our next via email. Is there any hope for my dogwood tree? If so, do you have a recommended treatment? And this is from Dunn. What did y'all think about that, Walter?
The tree looks pretty good. I do see a little bit of where some of the bark is scaled off a little bit, but if it's a Coosa dogwood, it would do that anyway. And I did see one little limb that looked like it was girdled a little bit or whatever, like it was a little messed up on one of the pictures. And that could possibly be, dogwood borer.
Possibly.
And you could get some type of spray that contains bifenthrin or permethrin or something to, get in there and take care of that. But it looks pretty good.
Think about that, Mr. D.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing, it just looks kind of thin.
Yeah.
The foliage
I
looks
thought it
thin,
looked
and I don't know, I would make sure there aren't any other issues around there. I mean, if you're doing a lot of, glyphosate spraying or, and you're letting it drift onto the tender foliage, you can create some problems there. But I really, its blooms look really good.
Yeah, the blooms look real
They
good.
really look good, so I don't know that he's got as much of an issue as he thinks he has.
Yeah, okay. Yep. All right, there you have it, Mr. Dunn. Yeah, I thought it actually, looked pretty good. I did look kind of thin to me, but it's kind of hard to tell from the picture as well because you don't know what's happening in the,
Where was this?
some of those other areas in the yard itself.
Do we know where this was?
We do not.
I'm wondering if it could have gotten burned back. The freeze, we had a late freeze,
Possibly.
a late hard freeze that may have it may have already been bedded out a little bit and kind of, hit it a little bit. That may be part of the problem. And if that's the case, it'll grow out of it and next year it'll be okay.
Okay. But yeah, I would definitely examine it too, for the dogwood borer.
Yeah.
Right.
Just look down in the lower,
Very common.
Yeah, lower part of that tree and just look for any little holes in the trunk.
Yep.
Could be your problem. All right, here's our next viewer email. What month should my Japanese maple start budding and sprouting leaves? And this is from Larry right here in Memphis. So Walter, what month?
Well, all I can say is my Japanese maple started budding and stuff. It was like late February.
So they're mine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I would say late February, March.
Yeah, they used to do the first that started budding and sprouting out in my landscape. And I have 2 Japanese maples at home, and they started pretty much late February, early March this year.
Yes.
Yeah, and
this
in
year's
years
not-
past, it's always the earliest in my landscape
that's
to
right,
start
that's
budding out
right.
anyway.
Yeah,
Right,
I
but,
always say between a Japanese maple and a forsythia, you about know spring is getting near.
Right.
When you look at those.
Right. And
So
Mr.
Larry, if your Japanese maple hadn't started budding
Oh,
or
boy.
sprouting leaves, may be in trouble. Maybe need to be thinking about firewood.
It's a firewood. Yeah, it might be a problem. I wonder about what about the late freeze? Mine survived it.
Yeah, mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine. Look good.
Depending on where it's positioned, I guess, in this landscape, but mine were just fine.
Yeah, I've not seen any that have been hurt by it. The-
Yeah, so it's something else going on then. Yeah,
Yes,
it's gotta be
yes.
something
Because I
else.
haven't had any calls about people complaining about them, so I think they're fine.
I severely pruned my mother-in-law's Japanese maple this year, and I did a whole lot more damage to it than the freeze did.
Okay.
And it's and
And
it's
it's still
fine.
good?
It's coming out good. It's looking good.
Well, there you have it, Mr. Larry. Appreciate the question. All right, Mr. D. Walt, we're out of time. Thank you.
Okay.
All All right. Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. Need some gardening advice? Head on over to the familyplotgarden.com. We have hundreds of videos on all sorts of gardening topics to help you and your plants be successful this year. Thanks for watching. I'm Chris Cooper. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Good Winds Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.